Now, Dusty Rhodes, in his book, he talks about, he claims he was more popular than you are in New York. And he tells a story in his book that he claims the two of you were at a nightclub after a wrestling match at Madison Square Garden. And he was surrounded by a mob of people and you had nobody around you. They were all flocking to him for autographs.
Well, but he said that, huh?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how to respond to that because it's kind of ridiculous. Dusty Rhodes, I remember McMahon would bring him in because Eddie Graham or Crockett, whichever territory he was in, they would ask if he would use him for a few shows, so they could publicize wherever he was working to say he's the new Madison Square Garden. They did that with Flair in the early days, man. But what the fans didn't know was that Ric Flair was wrestling Pete Sanchez. Nothing against Pete Sanchez, a wonderful fellow, but strictly preliminary. You know what I mean? You know, because he, for all the respect to Flair, but he didn't mean anything in New York at that time. And so Dusty was okay for a show or two, but he was not a guy that wrestled the territory full time. Frankly, I think he would have had a difficult time because people didn't see him as a, rugged, tough, because he was, what he's built like. So for him to say that, I would say that he either had some nice dreams for himself, or I don't know what, because that's sheer nonsense.
Yeah, and were you ever at any clubs with him after the shows?
Never hung out with Rhodes, not only in that New York area, but any place else in the country. I never palled out with the guy. Yeah. I saw him at an arena here and there, maybe when he came here for a shot or two, or in Florida. I think I saw him one time. There may have been someplace else, I don't know. But no, I never was out with Dusty Rhodes.
Wow.
Never.
Wow. Memories of the series of matches you had with Bruiser Brody?
Well, Bruiser Brody, he was an impressive-looking guy, big guy. I wrestled him a number of times. I even wrestled him in Madison Square Garden. Right. Yeah, I respected him because he looked great, so I felt he must have worked out pretty good. I didn't know him all that well. I can't give you too much on him because I never got very close to anybody.
Sure.
But as far as his in the ring, he was impressive looking guy. He was a 300-pounder, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and he was well put together, strong, rugged. He was a brawler, so to speak. And I thought that I thought we did okay together. We drew well, and I thought we had very respectable matches.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything negative about the guy. I felt terrible when I heard what happened to him. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
That bothered me a lot. I thought, my God, how could something like that happen?
Yeah.
He was a young guy. I think he was only in his 30s.
Had a family.
And the biggest tragedy of all, that case, as far as I know, it never got resolved.
You're correct. It's still open.
That blew me away.
Yeah.
I felt very, very sad when I got the news because I respected Bruiser Brody. I wrestled him a lot of times. Like I said, I never got too close to him to say that I knew him so well personally because you hung out with him. I didn't know him that way.
Right.
But I knew him from wrestling him and all that, and I know what kind of a guy he was in the ring. He a hard worker.
Yeah.
He looked like he must have worked out a good bit because he was always, in good shape.
Yeah.
I had great respect for him, and it's just such a tragic that something like that happened. And worst of all, there's been no justice.
One of your great foes, Bill Watts, that you had many matches with. Were you surprised at how much success he had as a promoter after he got out of the ring?
Well, no, I don't think I was surprised because, he was in the business as a wrestler for all those years. And I think that he was a student of the game. I think he paid attention to what was going on, picking up different promotions that he wrestled for. Besides wrestling here in the Northeast, he wrestled other areas as well.
Right.
And I think he was the type of guy who paid attention to what was going on. Some guys have that knack to learn from different things, so that if they're ever put in that position, They take bits and pieces, whatever, and they learned a lot, and they've seen what they think works, what it doesn't work, and they have ideas that they get from all these different experiences. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I had spectator sports in the tri-state area between part of Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia. And you put your experiences on the road together. Now, some people can do that well. Some other people, for some reason, they can't. It's just like you have great baseball players.
Right.
Some of them can learn the game well to be able to manage it. Some guys may be good players, but they can never be managers. Bill Watts studied the game, and it was obvious that he learned a lot because he became a very successful promoter as well.
Wow.
He's a very intelligent guy.
Yeah. Something that I think a lot of the fans and people watching might find rather interesting is that you used to socialize with the Rat Pack back in the day. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, one day I'm in Madison Square Garden, and a guard, came over to the room and he says to me, "Hey, Bruno," he says, "Jilly's out there, would like to meet you." So I said, "Who's Jilly?" I didn't know the name. That name didn't mean anything to me. He says, I said, "Jilly, who's Jilly?" "Jilly Rizzo." What's the matter with you? Don't you know who Jilly Rizzo is? Well, I didn't know who Jilly Rizzo was. So, but I came out because I often would get called to come out and meet somebody, and I would never refuse that. So I came out, and I seen this well-distinguished looking guy, well-dressed, he looked like a somebody, And I came out, and I was introduced to Jilly, and we shook hands, and I said, "Hi, how are you?" And he said to me, "Hey," he said, "I've been watching you." He says, "You're great." He says, "Where you from in Italy?" And I told him. He says, "Listen, I have a club here. It's called Julie's." He says, "I'd like you to come tonight." He says, "There's going to be some nice people there I'd like you to meet." And I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, he says, "Oh, please." He says, "I'll provide transportation." He says, "Well, I'll stay here till after the show." He says, "Get a bite to eat." He says, "Meet some people." He says, it's on 57th Street. So I thought, I really didn't have any plans that night. So I says, "Well, okay." So after I got through, he had a car waiting out there, and we went there. And I saw, this club. I seen some celebrities in there. Well, as time went on, I find out that this was Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis, Peter Lawford. I met actors like Richard Conte be there, and then I met a lot of other comedians, Rickles, Joey Bishop. My goodness, they all came there. And then I found out later that there were even some other heavyweights that came there, like I met Sam Giancana, and I didn't have a clue who he was.
Wow. Didn't
have a clue. I was such a naive young guy in those days. I was introduced with him. He was with the McGuire sister, one of the Dorothy or somebody McGuire.
I know who you're talking about.
She was a very pretty girl. And I said to her, "Wow, Miss McGuire," I said, "my wife and I saw you at the Holiday House in Pittsburgh." And meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself, "Gee, I wonder what she sees in this guy." It didn't look like much to me. Yeah. I found out years later who Sam Giancana was. I thought, "Oh my God."
Did you ever meet Marilyn during those days? Marilyn Monroe?
No. I met a lot. I met who were some of the females singers like Sarah Vaughan and Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I thinking? I can't even. It's not terrible. I can't think of all the names. But I met quite a few. Tony Bennett used to come there a good bit. I met Pat Cooper, the comedian, used to come there. Pat Henry used to be there all the time. Joey Lewis, remember the old time comedian Joey Lewis? He used to always be there.
Yeah.
You name them all the politicians, a lot of the heavyweights, the athletes. You'd see Mickey Mantle there with the Whitey Ford and Joe Pepitone, and Joe Namath used to come in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was movie stars, comedians, politicians, some other heavyweights of sorts.
Right.
They were all, that was all the hangout there. But Jilly, I have to tell you, was great with me. I knew him for about 18 years. That's how I got to know people like Sinatra, and that's how I got to meet that whole gang.
Yeah.
Through Jilly, and I got to meet him and hang out with him a little bit at Jilly's, of course, not outside there. But, the place would be closed, and we'd be there sometimes till 6, 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
That way, hang out. But I never, outside of Jilly's, ever went anywhere with any of these people, no.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.